Okay, just review a little bit on the JavaScript we've looked at so far. Here's our one program that I found out there that we've been working on where you're programming some kind of physics formula. You put these in here and then click the button and run some code. Okay. As a reminder, we got our form here, then our closing form, although that's optional if you're not actually going to send anything to the web server. Here we got an input, type text, and give it an ID, a name. Here's another one, we give it another name, another one. So those are our three, x naught, v bar, and time. Down here in the button, input type equals button. We got values calculate x, and on click, we call this function. So when you click the button, well, first, here's another one, input type text, and it's ID's answer. So it calls calculate x, comes up here, and retrieves the values, does a parse float. You can also do parse int to convert it to an integer. Integer is a number with no decimals. Float is a number with decimals. Document.get element by ID. A case does matter on all this. You give it a name here and then dot value. The dot value retrieves it as a string. So that comes in as a string, and then the parse float converts it to a number. And same with these other three. And it looks like this one takes x naught plus v bar times time and assigns it to x. Remember, that's not equality, that's an assignment. And then we do document.get element by ID, answer.value equals x. Okay, now this is the function. It's got a name, it's got beginning parentheses, closing parentheses here, beginning brace, closing brace, and then our script there. Okay. The JavaScript, and I know a lot of this is review, but since we haven't seen it for 2 or 3 weeks, and I figure it's worthwhile going over. We can do comparisons. Let me get down there. With an if statement. So we can check if something's true or not. And if it's true, then we can perform a certain action. Otherwise, if it's not true, we can perform a different action. When I get off work tonight, I'll go get gas because by the time I get home, I'll need to. Yesterday, Wednesday, it was questionable. If I felt like getting gas, I'd go get gas. Otherwise, I wouldn't. That's an if else setup we use in real life. I wasn't low on gas yesterday or the day before, so if I went to the gas station, great. If I didn't, that's fine too. If I'm hungry tonight, I'll eat. Otherwise, I won't. Okay. So let's change this, and we're going to write a program that brings in sales and then figures your bonus. Bring up kind of a scenario, maybe. Okay, so a web page to bring in sales. If the sales is greater than $10,000, then the bonus, or let's figure bonus, then the bonus is going to equal to sales times 1%. What would that be? $100? That isn't very good. Let's let's say 10%. Well, really give them motivation. Otherwise, they get nothing. Okay, so that's what we're looking at programming in. Now first, we got to design our form. So I need to bring sales in. And I'm going to give it an ID. I know some people have been copying their code, and not particularly this class, but in some classes, and they don't change the names. So you can reuse these. You don't have to do everything from scratch. Just make sure you change the names to something appropriate. If you're working sales, it should say sales. And instead of calculate X, I'm going to say calculate bonus. And let's change that to say calculate bonus, make it a little bit more meaningful. And then this one down here, I want to give it the name of bonus. Okay, so let me save that. This is what it currently looks like. They'll put sales in there, click this, and then it'll tell them what their bonus is. Up here, I need to retrieve sales. Now, you see how this is X naught, that's X naught, V bar, V bar. They don't have to be the same. I get in the habit of just making them the same, so you think that if you're learning it for the first time, it has to be. So I won't do that for this one. Okay, so I'm going to bring in sales. It can have decimals, so I'll do a parse float. Now, we're going to have an if statement, then beginning parentheses, and then closing parentheses, and something inside. Now, something inside is going to be a Boolean condition. And this gives you some examples. 2 is less than 12, which is true, so I'd return true. Now, that's an interesting one. I'm not going to get these weird ones. Not ready to discuss numbers and strings with you. Let's see. There. Let's talk about this. These are our operators. Equal to is where does it seems is equals. Equal value and equal type. That's where, again, I'm not going to go too much depth in it, but that's where you got 5 here and 5 here. While that may be equal, they're different types. Exclamation equal, not equal. Exclamation equal, not equal value or not equal type. Greater than, less than, greater than equal to, less than equal to. Now, these are pretty well standard. You don't see the 3 equals and exclamation equals in every language, but these other ones are pretty well standard. You see them about every language. I think Visual Basic is actually just an equals on this. They don't do it double equals, but most programming languages do the double equal. So here I'm going to do a check because I said, what did I say? If sales is greater than 10,000. Okay. And I can't see my cursor. There it is. Okay. So if sales total is greater than 10,000. Now, what as a program runs, it'll take a look at this inside here, and it'll evaluate whether that's true or false. So this first line here, of course, retrieves the value from the web page, and then assigns it to a variable. That variable, you can think of it in somewhere in memory, and it could be as vague as that. You don't need any more details in it, but that's in memory. When it hits this, it goes and retrieves that value from memory, places it here, whatever it might be. And then it checks the validity of this and returns true or false. And if it's true, then it'll do the line of code after this. So bonus is equal to sales total times, I think I said 10%. Else bonus equals 0. And then I want to write this back out to my one called bonus. Like that. So let's save that. And go test it. If it works, then I'll explain it. 20,000. Don't got something right. Okay, well, let's debug it. Come over here, click More Tools, Developer Tools, and let's see if I have errors. I do have an error. Calculate bonus is not defined. I renamed my function, but didn't change it up here. That would have took me a while. I would have searched through, and it probably would have took me maybe 30 minutes to locate that. Yeah, I was looking in the code here. I thought, what am I doing wrong here? It doesn't look too complex. This is why using the tools available in whatever development environment you have is important. And understanding, even though it looks weird, you don't maybe understand all of this. This right here told me exactly what the problem is. It said calc bonus. Oh, okay. Not defined. Okay, so 20,000 to 2,000. If I put in $300, I'm get 0. Okay, so let's talk about it. And well, this I don't need to talk about. You know, that's our definition. When it calls calculate bonus, as I said, this retrieves the value. This returns true or false. Let's say it returns true. If I can put 20,000 in. Since that's true, it'll come down here and do this line of code here. Now, after it does that line of code, it drops down to after the if-else structure and does the next line of code. The next line of code you can actually do something with is right here. Now, let's say it comes up here and this is false. For example, I put 200 in for sales total. 200 is not greater than 10,000. Since that's false, it comes down here to this else. Else is done if this does not return true. And then I'll say bonus is equal to 0. Now, notice that these have single lines here, and they end with a semicolon. But there is no semicolon here. This is a bad programming mistake to put a semicolon after an if statement like that. Some programming languages will actually let you do that. And it just gives you bizarre results, and you spend an hour trying to figure out why it's not working. You cannot have a semicolon there. Why every programming language doesn't check for that and tell you it's wrong. I can't think of a case when you would ever want to put one there. Okay, let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's bring in 3 test scores, and we want to calculate the average, and then we want to figure out their grade in the class. Okay, so I'll come down here, test 1, test 1. Okay, so test 2, input type equals text, ID equals test 2, BR, another line break, test 3, input type equals text, ID equals test 3, another line break, calculate grade. I'll call that grade. I said I wanted the average. So it's giving an idea of average. And then they're grading the class. Input type equals to text, ID equals grade. Okay, so I got test 1, test 2, test 3, average, and then grade. So coming up here, test 1, what I changed the function name to? Calculate grade. And it's going to bring in test 1. You can definitely edit copy and edit paste. Don't lose track of that. But you'll find that if you type all these in from scratch to begin with, then at least for me, I don't got too good of a memory. It helps me to remember the syntax. Once you get the syntax down, then it's not so important. Document.get element by ID. So I can just look up the syntax when I really care too much about that. Imagine you go to drive a car, and you get in the car. You need to put the key in, so you have to pull out the user's manual to figure out where to put the key in. You put the key in, and then you have to pull out the user manual again to figure out how to turn it on. Then pull out the user manual again to figure out how to put in reverse, and so on. You definitely can do that, but if you have a somewhat understanding of the function of the car, it simplifies it. Same thing here. Okay. Average is equal to test 1 plus test 2 plus test 3 divided by 3. Spacing doesn't matter, but I would spend a little bit of time, make it look good. You'll find it's easier to debug later on, easier to go back and figure out what you were doing. Okay, so I want to write that out to the average. So definitely people like Notepad++ better than this. But some people are using a Mac, and some people are using a Chromebook, so I just keep it very simple with this. That value equals to average. Now I'm going to do my check on my average. If they got greater than or equal to 90, then I want it to be an A. So I'm going to say if average is greater than or equal to 90, then and I could say letter grade equals to an A. Then I'll say else if average is greater than or equal to 80. Letter grade is equal to a B. Else if average is greater than or equal to 70. Letter grade is equal to C. Else if average is greater than or equal to 60. Letter grade is equal to a D. If none of the above is true, that's an F. And then down here, their grade is going to equal to letter grade. Okay, so let's test it. 82, 85, 87, since all those are in 80s, I better get a B, which I do. We put 60s in there. 65, 63, 70. That should still give me an average of 60 something. It's weird. Yeah, I guess it is divisible by 3. 198, and you add digits together, gives you 18. 18 is divisible by 3, so that, okay. So I was wondering why there wasn't no decimals. So it appears to be working. So let me explain what it's doing. These are obvious. It's bringing in 3 values from our text fields. Here it's averaging them. Why the parentheses? If you remember order of operations, same order of operations you had in mathematics applies in programming. It would do this division before it did addition. So in order to force it to do the addition first, I had to put parentheses around it. Now in math, you just learned to please excuse my Duran Sally is a popular way to remember it. It said do what's inside of parentheses first. In programming, we deliberately put parentheses there to force that. Now, if you don't know what the order of operations is, no big deal. You just have to know if you want to add these together first, go ahead and put parentheses around it. Then you don't need to worry about it. So if you're not sure about the order of operations, just put them there, just be on the safe side. You know, theoretical person tell you no, research which is the proper way, don't put parentheses unless you need them and so forth. Well, in real life, they want you to do things fast. They want you to do them good, but they want them fast. Probably the worst case of speed issues is when I started at Koch Industries, the KOCH, and we were given projects to work on that had been requested a year, 2 years prior to us getting the project. And we'd have to contact the business unit, and we'd have to say, I'm getting ready to work on this project. It was submitted a year, 2 years ago. And first you check to make sure they still wanted it. A lot of times they didn't even remember submitting it. So, well, we'll have to look at that. Give me the project, and I'll go talk with my managers and so forth. They'd go off, and sometimes they'd come back and say, "No, our needs have changed. We don't need this anymore," and so forth. 2 years is an eternity. We're working on past projects that old. They implemented something called market-based management at Coke. Fantastic idea. I won't go into a whole lot of detail on it. I could probably easily spend an hour just doing an overview of it, but basically, everybody operated as their own business. Yeah, every programmer was their own business unit, and you had rent for your office. You had, your boss's salary you had to absorb on the other employees, your own salary. All that was figured into your hourly rate. I think mine was $50 an hour, and everybody had to be accountable. You had to not make a profit. That wasn't the goal, but the goal was to, you should be adding enough value to a company to cover your salary at least. If you're not, if they're paying you $50,000 a year and you're only adding $20,000 value, they need to get rid of you. And that's kind of the idea behind it. And businesses had the same concept. Well, when you made everybody accountable in that manner, they start really analyzing whether they needed something or not. I could go around my room here in Wellington, and I could request a lot of different things that I'd like to see changed. But the question is, do they add value? If they don't add value, why am I having individuals come over, spending resources to do something that's really not that important? For life of me, I can't think of anything I'd want changed, so I can't really give you a good example. I'm sure there is if I look around. The paint on my behind my chair. Um, I tend to push my chair back and hit the wall over and over, so it's got a little scuffed up. I could have them repaint that area, but then look funny because the rest of the office wouldn't look the same. So I could have them paint the entire office. How much value is that going to add? Well, it might make me feel better. How can I put a measure on feeling better? It doesn't look so bad that it would make people think ill of Cali. So that's an example. They were asking us to do stupid stuff that really didn't add value. It took our 2-year backlog down to 0 backlog. When they requested a project, it was an important project they wanted worked on, and they got worked on immediately. They didn't have to wait 2 years to get it, which is an eternity in business. So anyway, speed is what's important. They need it now. They don't need it 2 years from now. Okay, long-winded to say, put parentheses if you don't know. Okay, so then after I calculate average, I write it out to the form. Doesn't matter. These don't have to be at the very end. Order doesn't matter. Then down here, let's say my average comes out as 92. This first if statement, this will plug 92 in for average, and then it'll say is 92 greater than or equal 90. It is, that's true. So it'll run this line of code here. Now, after it gets done running that line of code, it drops down to the very end and does the next runnable line of code, which is this. Now, let's say that my average was 76. Comes here, plugs 76 in for average. It says 76 greater than or equal 90. No, it's false. So it comes down and does this check. Plug 76 in for average and say is 76 greater than or equal to 80. It's not, so that's false. So it comes down here, does this check, and says, hey, is 76 greater than or equal to 70? It is, that's true, so it does this line of code, and then when that's done, it comes down and runs the next runnable line of code, which is down here. So you can nest these together. Now it's important you nest them correctly. For example, if I put greater than or equal to 60 here. So it covers 60 to 69. And I put D there. And if I put 70, C, 80, B, then 90, A, and then if it's none of the above, it's an F. Now, if you just mentally walk through, you don't even have to use the debugging tools of any kind of environment you're using. If you just mentally walk through it, you'll see your errors. For example, 76 for an average should give us C. So let's come here and think this through. 76 is greater than or equal to 60. So then this would print, set the letter grade equal to D. And since it's true, it drops down here and does this. So right away, I see my code is wrong. Now there's other ways you can program this. Logical operators. You can have the and, the or, and the not. The and both have to be true. The or, either one can be true. And the not changes this to the opposite. So this is saying x equal y. So not x equals y. So x is not equal y. So if I wanted to program this, I could say if average is greater than or equal to 60 and average is less than or equal to 69. Now, there's a problem here. What if my grade's 69.3? Where's that could be covered at? So oftentimes when you use something like this, you might put is less than 70. That would include all the possible decimal places. 69.99999 would be less than 70. That'd be a D. Here, if average is greater than or equal to 70, and average is less than 80. This one, if we put an ampersand here, and average is less than 90. I probably wouldn't put it in this order if I was doing it, but it's fine. And here, if average, actually, I don't need to check, see if it's less than 100. That's an A. Okay, I think that'll work. I programmed it so much the other way that I've never have tried to do it a different way. Okay, 92, 90, oops, 95, 93. And so we get that. Let's try something else. 4, I don't know what that gives me. Okay, appears to be working. Now we're going to look at another way to do an if statement. Last time we, it was last time. It was 2 times ago. I don't remember. We looked at a checkbox. And remember a checkbox, we got our input type equals checkbox, and then we give it an ID. Well, let's program something in here to add in insurance and next day shipping. So we're going to change our application. Okay, so down here, I'm going to have them input their order amount. And I'll call this order amount. And I'm not going to use the labels that we saw. Okay. See how they don't either. Keep it very simple. You just oftentimes do that. And insurance input type equals, and this is where we put in our checkbox, so changes. ID equals insurance. And next day shipping. Input type equals to checkbox, ID equals next day. Down here, instead of calculate grade, I'm going to calculate order amount. And then down here, I'll have something for total. Okay, so let's look at it, see how it looks. Looks like I need a line break there. BR. Okay. Now they'll put some kind of amount in here. They want insurance, they'll click there. If they want shipping, they'll click there. So that's how checkbox member works. And we're going to then calculate the order amount. Now insurance, let's say, is going to add $5. And next day shipping, we'll be adding $40. That way they know if they check those that that's the appropriate amount that'll be added on. Okay, so order amount. Let's handle that first. I'll come up here. And I'll retrieve order amount. It can have decimals. I need to choose something next time to, it's an integer, just so you see examples of that. Okay, and then document.getElement, what was this? Total is equal to total. And so up here, I'm simply going to say total is equal to order amount. This is part of an incremental type approach to programming. Is get each little piece working. See how here I got an error. I didn't mean to be an error. I didn't do that on purpose. Calculate grade. Okay, same thing I did before. What I call it? Order amount. It's not as depressing. We only got one error. Okay, so that part's working. So then you can go on to the next part. Now, it's easy to check to see if a checkbox is checked or not. And by the way, this is there's a how-to section on in W3 schools, and you see this one specifically says how to JS JavaScript display checkbox text. That's not quite what I wanted to show you, but it was the closest I could find. But this shows you how to check it. Now we make a connection between some kind of variable name and the actual component. This is another way to do this. You don't have to do it this way. You could do it out completely, like we have been looking. Let's copy that. Where's my notepad? So up here, I'm gonna make a connection between then this will say is insurance. And insurance here. Now this is actually our object. We got certain properties, attributes associated, like value is one of them. But this is just making a very generic saying, okay, we're attaching insurance to that object. Then you're down here, you're checking the property, the attribute of checked. So here we're going to say if insurance.checked. Now they have equals true. And I don't think you need that, but I'm going to go ahead and put it just to really emphasize it. Now I'm going to put a beginning brace here and a closing brace. Like that. Oops. Maybe. There we go. Now I'm going to talk more about that here in a second. Okay, so if that's true, I want to add something. Insurance, we had $5. So the total is going to equal to total plus 5. Okay, so let's save that. Let's go check it. Learned a long time ago, don't start explaining something if your code's wrong. Okay, notice how I checked that. It changed to 38. Uncheck it. It's back to that. Okay, so that's working. So let's talk about what it's doing. Like I said, we made the association to the object here. And then I refer to that name, insurance. That's not the ID. That's actually the variable name I called it here. And I'm referring to the property of checked. And the check property is true or false, which is a Boolean. A Boolean is a data type that takes up less memory. Instead of using strings like yes and no's, then you can use this. A string is where you have like alphanumeric, and you usually have double quotes around it. I showed that one example earlier, but I didn't really go into detail on it because we're going to cover strings later on. But Boolean takes up very little space memory-wise. So, and it's also kind of self-documenting. Now, I said that this equals true is not really necessary. Let's see if that's a true statement. I don't know why they put it over here in W3 schools, but 33, okay, check that. The reason why it's not necessary is, remember, the way the if statement works is this is checking whether this is true or false. So the insurance.check by itself actually returns true or false. So you don't need to check to see if it's equal to true. This says if true, then do this. Now, there would be nothing wrong, in case you're wondering, of writing out if, see if I can get this right, document.get element by ID insurance dot checked. Okay, you see that works just fine too. So you can use the variable here to shorten it for your coding, or you can just take it all the way out. Now you can do this in our other ones too. So where we make the association here, you can do a var on that first, and then you don't have to make it as wordy. So if this starts getting too cumbersome with writing it all out, then assign it a variable like this. It just makes it easier. Okay, I'll put that back the way it was. Well, I probably can't. Edit. I saved that. Control V. Now I put a beginning curly brace here and a closing curly brace. These are not necessary if you have one line of code. If you have two or more lines of code, they are necessary. They don't hurt anything, if you just have one line of code, but you don't need to put them. Now here, I might think, well, I'll just put an else now and check for the other one. I guess I need to declare a variable for it. var next day equals document dot get element by ID. And it's actually called next day. And I can put an else here. I'm going to talk about why this is wrong. Next day dot checked equals true. And then say total equals total plus something. No memory. 40. Okay, let me save that and run it. Okay, put 33 in there. Okay, add that, gives me 5. Okay, add this, and doesn't give me what I think it should. Let's take that off. That works. So it doesn't appear like it works like we think. Now, the way a checkbox works is I could check this, I could check this, I could check both of them, I could check neither of them. So it would never, checkboxes would never, well, is that true statement? Most times, you would never have an if-else type structure because it's not one or the other. So if it's not one or the other, then you'd have this. So this will come up here and check to see if that's true. If it is, then it does that. This will check to see if it's true. If it does that. So each one's independent. That's the nature of a checkbox. Okay. 38, this should give us 78. Go through and you test all the cases, that should give you 73. 38, and no checkboxes should be 33. You know, when you're putting the checkbox in place, you should go through and test all of your cases and make sure that's correct. But that's a checkbox combined with the if statement. Let's see, I think I have time for the next part. Web form, JavaScript, radio. Click it. There it goes. Slow. Okay. Now, we had radio buttons. Just to refresh your memory. We had these grouped together like this. And how they were grouped together is the fact that they all had this name, gender. Okay, so let me just to save time, copy this code. And I'm going to change my page over here such that the next day shipping is not a checkbox. I want to see which option they want for shipping. Okay, so I'm going to give this a name of shipping, so they're all linked together. And I'll make this first one next day. This next one, today. And then this last one, whenever we want. Seems like there's some of the shipping ones that are like that. Okay, and so next day. Today. What am I changing that for? Radio. And whenever. And names all have to be the same. That's how it links them together, remember? Next day, add $40. Today, add $20. And this will be free shipping. These do not have to be on one line. So you can put them down like this. HTML is very forgiving in that, or very accommodating in that regard. Okay, and I'll just say this is next day. Today. And then this will be whatever. Okay, so let's come up here and get rid of those. And get rid of it, or actually keep that. Next day, Is that what it's called? Yeah, next day. Now let's do an alert here. We really haven't talked about alerts. They're kind of nice. This is the alert next day. Hopefully I haven't got rid of so much of the breaks, but let's see. Okay, not quite like what I want, but that's okay. 33 or 333, check things. Okay. Notice what this says. Object HTML input element. We're referring to the actual element at this point, the component. We're not referring to a property. Let's change this to value. Let's see what that returns. Okay. I didn't expect that. On. That's interesting. Let's do check. Returns false. That column next day, I would expect it true. Now that's got me confused. Okay, next day. Let's put my names down here. Next day. False. Interesting. So I bet there's actually two ways you could check this, but maybe there isn't. That would imply that there isn't. Okay. Come over here. On. And what am I forgetting? Get element by ID. Oh, do I? That would do it. Yeah, I left the checkbox there, didn't I? I was in such a hurry that. Yeah, that would definitely explain it. Okay. Yep, only in one next day now. Okay, so it says next day. When you're setting the there it is. When you're setting the value, you can query that. And if we want to query checking it, let's see what that gives us. Returns false. This should return true. Ah, perfect. Thanks for pointing that out. I didn't even notice that. Okay. I mention this because in JavaScript, sometimes there's more than one way to handle this. It's kind of up to you and how you want to do that. Now I'm going to go with the Boolean, whether it's checked or not, because that's kind of what we're focusing on. Okay, so go ahead and create the other ones. var no memory, today, whenever. Today equals document dot get element by ID. Today. Document dot get element by ID. whatever. And I'm going to do my if statement. So I'm going to say if next day dot checked, and you don't have to put a equals true if you don't want to. Then I want to add something to my total. Total is equal to total plus 40, 20, and free. So 40. I do an else if today dot checked. Boolean just kind of self-documents itself, makes it more readable. Total is equal to total plus 20, I think it was. And, you know, actually, I don't even need to check the other one. Okay. Because if it's not those, then it's free or 0. Since I don't got a... No, I do need that because the other one could be checked. Okay. So let's see how that goes. Okay, 33, add my insurance. That gives me that. Okay. That's interesting. I broke my insurance. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, never mind. I'll wake up here. 73, 53, and free. Okay, so that's the nature of a radio. Your radio buttons have to be an if-else. Well, I guess they wouldn't have to be since I'm doing it this way. I'm referring to each individual component separate. Now, I want one of these be set to set equal to check to begin with, because if I come here and it works that time, but may not always work. So the nature of a radio button is you want all of them, one of them checked to begin with. I only got 2 minutes, so we'll see if I can do this. Because I'll be honest, I don't remember how to have them checked. Okay. Next day, let's try checked. Yep, that was it. See how that is checked to begin with? Now I could refresh it. That was easy. I thought I'd have to Google it, to be honest. But how did I know that? You know, am I super genius? No. If you're referring to the property of checked up here, it was a pretty good bet that it'd be called checked down here. Now I don't know where you could refer to this. I think there is good documentation on it. Properties of a radio in HTML. See, these are different things you can program. So you could have something disabled and you could enable it in your code. So a lot of different things you can program and you can set and so forth. Like I say, I don't know where the best resource is to list all the properties. Most of them you never have to do anything with. Check value. They talk more about that. This bread doesn't look too bad. I don't do and this tells you where it's supported at too. I don't do web design on a regular basis, so not that important. I had a meeting with somebody today, go over. She wants some changes to her website, and I thought that'd be good. Give me some practical experience to change something in real life. I'm out of time. I want you to program. Where's my code? I think that was one. Okay, so I want you to program, and you can do something different, but my idea is a pizza app. So I'm ordering a pizza from Casey's or Pizza Hut, and you have all your different options, extra cheese and three meats, and so forth. Um, you could even have check boxes for the different toppings, pepperoni, sausage, so forth. Um, I want you to program it such that you can order a pizza and you can choose all the different toppings and extra cheese or whatever. Click your calculate order amount, and it should then tell you the order of your pizza. Now, if you want to do something besides pizza, fantastic. It's entirely up to you. I just want you to implement your check boxes and radio buttons in some kind of order or some kind of form. So I want to see you program those. I'm very easy going about that. If you have an entire different idea, um, just as long as it uses those components we looked at today, I'm happy. Questions on what I'm looking for? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and stop the